Hi guys, welcome back to Subtractive Synthesis 101 with Sonic Academy. In this video we're going to take a look at the modulation section, and if you recall from before, modulation's like having automation built into your synth. So using modulation you can control lots of the parameters within the synth automatically. Now there are two types of modulation we're going to take a look at. The first is going to be your attack, decay, sustain, release envelope, or ADSR envelope. And the second is going to be your LFO, or low frequency oscillator. And these are the two main types of modulation that you'll see in almost every synth that you're going to use. So we'll focus on those. Now the first kind is going to be your envelope. Let me just switch this filter off so it's not doing anything. Within Serum, envelope 1, you've got a choice of 3 envelopes here. Envelope 1 is hardwired to your amp section, or if you recall, that's volume. So envelope 1 is going to control the volume. Now the 4 main controls, attack, decay, sustain, release, do different things. And the first one is attack. And what this does is it controls the time it takes for the volume to get from a level of 0 up to 100% or full volume. So if I play the note now, if you look at the attack, it's set down to 0. The volume goes up to 100% straight away. Now if I increase the attack time, you'll see the slope in the GUI increasing. This slope here describes the increase in volume, and as I play a note you'll see a little blue dot go along this line. It's quite handy. Serum's got this function where you can see what's going on. So the higher the attack time, the slower the increase in volume. Okay, let's take attack right back down to 0 so the note's on straight away. If we go to the opposite end, I'll just say now, let's ignore the hold function here because most ADSR envelopes don't have a hold function, so we're going to ignore that for the purpose of this video. At the other end of the spectrum you've got release, and what this does is it describes the amount of time it takes for the volume to go down to 0 after you release a key. So at the moment this is set right down to nothing, so as soon as I release a key the volume switches off. But if I increase the release time you'll hear the note sustain for a little bit. And again you can see the blue dot following this line. If I increase it even more it'll be even more pronounced. Okay. Now the two controls in the middle, decay and sustain, are kind of related. They work off of each other. Now what decay does, it determines the amount of time taken for the volume to reduce from 100% set by the attack portion down to a designated sustain level while you hold the note. And what that means is if I decrease this sustain here, this portion of the curve here, this is how loud the note is going to be while I'm holding the note down. Okay, so as I switch the note on, the attack tells the note to go up to 100% volume straight away, and the sustain time, or the sustain value, is going to tell the oscillator how loud to be while I'm holding the note down. So you're going to be able to see this as I play the note here. So I'm still holding the note down, and this is where the blue line is set now, note off. Let me increase the release so you can see what happens as I take the note off. So note on, it goes right up to 100% value, and then it drops down to this value here. And this value is the volume while I'm holding the note down. So let's have a look at that again. So I'm holding the note down, this is where the level is set to. I let go of the note, and there you go. The decay time, what the decay time does is it sets the length of time between 100% attack, which is here, and the sustain value that I've set. So if I increase the decay time, let me increase the sustain a little bit as well. I'll hit the note at this portion here, it'll go up to 100% value, and then the decay tells the synth how long it's going to take to get down to that sustain value. And you'll be able to see that with the little blue dot that Serum gives you. So let's have a look at that now. Note's still down. This is the sustain portion, and I let go. So that's basically what the ADSR envelope does. Now, you don't just use this for volume. You can use ADSR volumes to control almost anything in most synths these days, and that's something we'll look at later on when we're doing some sound design. But this just gives you an idea of what the controls do and how they affect the signal. The next control is LFO. What LFO means is a low frequency oscillator. So generally speaking, an LFO will give you a choice of sine wave, saw wave, pulse wave, very similar to the oscillators that you can hear. But they tend to operate so slowly that they're outside the audible range. So in Serum, we've got 4 oscillators in Serum. And at the moment, this first LFO is set up as a triangle. And I don't think it shows you anything when I put the note down. Let me just check. Let me just take this note back down to full value as well, so the note's just on or off. Okay. Now what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to assign the LFO to something so that you can see what I'm doing. And the way we do this in Serum, there's 2 ways. We can use the modulation matrix here, which again I'm going to go into a bit later on. Or Serum's quite cool because you can just drag and drop things. So I'm going to choose a low pass filter, and I'm going to drag LFO1 onto this filter so that it's going to be affecting the filter itself. Now we're going to have a look at the controls in a bit more depth. Generally speaking, you're going to have a rate dial or a speed dial, and this tells the oscillator how fast to operate. And at the moment, the LFO in Serum is synced to the BPM of the DAW that you're using, and it's set to 1 bar. So as I hit the note down, you should see a blue dot going along this curve. So it's going to go up, and then it's going to go down again over the period of 1 bar. So let's have a look at that. And don't forget, this is affecting the cutoff of the filter. So you can see as the LFO goes up and down, it's pushing the filter up and down. And I set the amount that the LFO is acting on the filter using this tiny little toggle switch here. So you can see how much it's affecting the filter itself. Now you can increase the speed of the LFO using this dial. So let's switch it up to 1/2 bar. And then you could go up to some crazy 16th notes. Okay, so you can also choose the shape, don't forget, and in Serum there's tons of different shapes you can use, but we're going to stick with the basic one. So let's switch that over to a sine wave, which you're going to be familiar with. And let's slow this down so it's more obvious what it's doing. So you can see it following this curve, and as the curve goes up, the filter is being increased, and as it comes back down again, the filter is coming back down. So LFOs are very, very useful for lots and lots and lots of different things. I mean, we're going to go into this in the next video. I'm going to have a look at a modulation matrix. But you can use this to control almost anything, and this is where sound design starts getting very interesting. Now let's just switch over to Anna quickly, because Anna's got some other controls as well. So you can see Anna's got some ADSR envelopes. You've got one ADSR envelope hardwired to the filter, because you'd use ADSR envelopes on the filter a lot. You've got one hardwired to the amp section, just as you did in Serum, and then you've also got a free one in Anna as well. So this one can be assigned to lots and lots of different parameters in the synth. And then looking over at the LFO section, you can choose your LFO shape here. So you've got sines, triangles, saw waves, pulses, also sample and hold. Sample and hold is like a very fast square wave, but with random amplitude values. So, excuse me. So sample and hold can be used for they used to use it a lot with computery effects. So if I just, in fact, I'll give you an example. Let's have a look at sample and hold, and let's choose a sine wave. And let's assign this sample and hold to oscillator 1's pitch and increase the value a little bit. Oh no, I've done it again. Let's switch back over to Anna. So you can see what it's doing. I've chosen a sample and hold oscillator shape, or LFO shape, and it's like a square wave. If you remember the shape of a square wave, but sample and hold is a random amplitude, so the height of the square is kind of randomized. and I've assigned that shape to oscillator 1's pitch by this amount controlled by this dial here. And we can speed that up as well, and then it'll get very computery. Or computery, the way they used to think it would be in the 60s and 70s. So there's a little flavour of a modulation matrix style thing there. Now, the common controls for an LFO are rate, as I said. Depth is the amount of LFO applied to your target, although Anna gives you another value here. This is how much signal you're being sent from the LFO to the target itself. And then phase, what phase is, if you remember when we looked at the phase of an oscillator in serum, that tells the LFO where to start in its phase. If that's gobbledygook, let's go back to serum here. Do you remember the phase dial here? It tells where in the oscillator shape itself it's going to start. So let's go back to Anna. Okay, so you can assign different shapes of the LFO. So if you choose a triangle to the same oscillator 1 pitch, it's more of a kind of wobbly effect because it's just going up and down. And then you could also assign random, as the name suggests, is a random value. So that randomizes the pitch, and it sounds a bit like noise. So that's a rough idea of what the two kinds of modulation are. What we'll do in the next video is we'll take a little bit more of an in-depth view of the modulation matrix. We'll start doing a little bit of sound design, but probably nothing specific, just to give you an idea of what you can use the modulation matrix for and how it can affect the sounds that you're shaping. So I'll see you there.